Jay Abraham is truly, truly, truly one of the top thinkers and what I call statesmen of direct marketing, direct response marketing ever, ever, ever. I came in contact with Jay in probably 1983-ish, 4-ish. He was, charging $25,000 a day for consulting, in an age where $25,000 was even more than it is today, obviously. And the writings, the thinking, the strategy, there are so many, between him and Dan Kennedy, he's one of those guys that people say that they got into the business because they read Jay Abraham. They follow Jay Abraham because that got them excited about being the kind of marketer that they think they could be. The one thing that I love about Jay in particular is that he's obsessed with long-term business strategy and not revenue events, and we've had that theme throughout. Being in a series of revenue events is just that's not where we want to be. We want to be in the long term, get businesses that are really there for the long term, and that's what Jay has always believed. Jay has worked with and mentored, including me, many of the greats in the business. Some of these points will come out in this interview. I really wanted to sit down in these comfy chairs, talk to my mentor, Jay Abraham. We'll leave time for some Q&A, and Jay will be here for the Q&A at the end, so if we don't get to your question today, you'll be able to nail him then. He's been so generous with his time. He's very, very gracious, and he's always the best dressed in the room. Jay Abraham.
Thank you. Okay. Am I on?
Yeah.
When you call somebody when you call him a statesman, it means you're an old fart.
Yeah.
Basically, it hasn't quite hit senility.
Yeah. I was thinking about putting a seatbelt on Jay's chair because he's going to start popping out of it soon, and I really want to keep him. I want to keep you hydrated, and I want to keep you just calm and just dish it out, baby.
So you just have to have the electrodes.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought I made up the title for this called, preeminence is a word that I think Jay almost invented. And if you've read any of Jay's stuff, and somebody said to me, "Oh, don't call it that because then they'll just think Jay's going to talk about all the stuff that he always talks about," which would be okay actually. But I feel like you invented the word preeminence, Jay, and I want to. It's something you've talked about forever, but tell me about what it means to you. Maybe you can do like a quick, although nothing's quick, but something about the past and the present and future, and what the preeminence means to you now versus what it meant. Is it still the same? And talk about why you love that word so much.
Yeah, but I've got to give acknowledgement. I really borrowed and then morphed it from Phillips.
Okay.
And I really borrowed it and morphed it from Bob King.
Okay, well those are Phillips Publishing guys. Phillips Publishing has been sold a few times over, so it's yours now. So
okay. So the
$195 million, Healthy Directions. I think they don't care.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So quick origin, backstory, and then front is I build businesses. I grow businesses, and I didn't realize that, but I became very aware of that at a certain point. And I was very good on strategy. I was very good on tactic. I was very good on adapting, adopting, integrating all kinds of methodology, approaches, and ideology from lots of industries. But I had a missing piece, and I realized what it was really this higher ideal. It was a purpose-driven, but not just like I want to own the market. It's that I want to be seen as the most trusted advisor by the market. And if I'm going to be the advisor, I have to be willing to give advice that may not necessarily stimulate the sale right now. I have to tell them what I believe, what I don't believe. I have to give them the best reasoned recommendations. I have to probably be strongly opinionated against my competitor, but not putting him or her down because I don't believe they add enough value or concern. I have to care more about the betterment of the client's outcome, and I have to have enough context of understanding of what it's like. I have to examine, appreciate, acknowledge, respect, and really capture what it's like to be in the shoes of the market at a very deep level. And I have to live for the impact I'm going to make. I can go on and on and on and on and on, but basically you fall in love with the client, not yourself, your business, your product.
Right.
And you have a moral obligation and a privilege and a responsibility to transform the lives, and you understand transformation in a very granular sense. I can go on and on.
That's
for
good.
hours.
I'm going to continue the conversation. My favorite book of yours, and I use the phrase all the time, and I didn't give it. I don't give Phillips credit or you. I decided it's mine. No, it's yours.
You can have it. Take it.
No, it's yours. Getting everything you can out of all you got. That's Jay Abraham. And sometimes I say that, to people that, at Boardroom we say we could be selling this or that, and some things don't fit with the mission or the brand or whatever, and that's a personal decision from the marketing side. But I'd like to talk about getting everything you can out of everything you got, and what's changed in regard to this over your career. Like, what are the eternal truths everybody needs to know about that concept? Because we have a lot of great marketers here. They understand funnels, they understand Ascension programs, they understand lifetime value, but what can you tell them about getting everything you can out of everything you got?
Well, I'll just give you some simple truths. I mean, I've been acknowledged for a couple things that I basically rediscovered. And it's nothing new. It's just rediscovering and reincorporating. So in that book, we talked about something very simple. You break a business into two parts. You basically maximize whatever they're doing now, even if it's stupid, because it's driving the revenue. Then you use the maximization and the incremental or the windfall revenue you get so that you can now start multiplying the more strategic things they do. My observation, and I don't really do as much, I do direct response in every application, but I don't do a lot of information. I do all kinds of commerce around the world. Most companies are terribly, terribly tactical. Their idea of strategy is embarrassing, first of all. Second, if they have a strategy, they don't reverse engineer it and really try to correlate it to performance metrics, so they don't have a clue how it's doing. They don't have hedge strategies. They don't have any concept of what to do if it underperforms, and they honestly don't have a good idea what to do if it overperforms. Most people, and I'm pretty well recognized for the Parthenon and the multiple sources, and most people don't. I mean, a lot of online marketers, they default to one or two activities, but I think today, more than anything, you really have to have a deep, the idea of being connected is, I think, almost it's not hypocrisy, but I think it's not a dichotomy, but it's a conundrum. You really don't know the depth of relationship with the market. And you're not really deep with them. And I think the greatest thing you can do is really know your market and really appreciate what it's like to be there. And I don't think a lot of people do anymore. We always were able, because I was involved in 465 industries, we were very fluid and dynamic, and not dynamic in being impressive, but we could look at an industry and we could very easily borrow elements from all kinds of other industries, whether it be business model, strategy, revenue approach, competitive positioning, deferred gratification, really cool bonus inducements, outrageously preemptive, whether it's risk reversal, whatever. We could almost always come up with masterful ways to out-position or outsell or out-market. Not because I was that great, it's that I just have been exposed to that many things other people haven't. But I think you have to, I mean, divergent thinking is critically important today. I think Perry said it very much more eloquently, but if you look at great breakthroughs, historically, they don't come from within. In that book you're talking about, we talked about how everything from fiber optics was created for aerospace, not for telecommunication. Viagra was created for heart. Rogaine was created for pimples. I mean, nothing was... Great breakthroughs come from outside, and you have to have convergent and divergent thinking working for you all the time. My greatest advantage is that I have a hopeless and an insatiable curiosity about everything that is outside. And there's a great book that was written in the 50s by James Webb Young. It's called A Technique for Creating Ideas. I got it from Dan Rosenthal. It's about this big. It's toilet reading. And he was the he was the driver of J. Walter Thompson when they were at their very peak. And the essence of it is, and somebody else, I think Gary said it very magnificently, the mind's an incredible mechanism. It was designed for one thing or another, to solve problems or to clarify and create opportunities, but it can't do what it was designed to do if you don't help it.
Right.
So you got to give it a directive, then you got to help it. And everybody basically doesn't realize there's two ways to do it. You spend a lot of time studying everything you can about what your goal is, your outcome, your problem or your opportunity, but then you spend every minute you can studying everything else that's irrelevant, because that's where the breakthroughs come from. And I've been able to do that all my life, study everything else, and then your mind gives you all these ways to access these filaments and weave it together into enormously powerful and very, very preemptive fabric. So
that's brilliant, Jay. That really is brilliant. I wouldn't want to live in your brain, actually. I think it would be a very tough place to be.
It's very difficult for marriages, but and this is true. I'm the greatest person to sit next to on an airplane or to bump into at a cocktail party, because I can have very meaningful dialogue with you about anything.
You got a lot of things to. When Jay calls you on the phone, he never really. I mean, not that I know he loves me, so I know he doesn't have to ask me how you doing. It's always, so what's new that's hot, or what's happening? Jay is going to take every opportunity to get that knowledge. So he's walking the walk. He's not just, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to usurp Brian asking me questions, but I want to give some really priceless lessons. If you don't understand Socratic interviews, shame on you, because it is probably the most powerful, revealing, and it gives you the power to ask penetrating questions in a respectful way. You have to learn how to listen and hear what is being said.
Give some examples, Jeff. What's a great? Well, that is one, right?
Well, I can relate it to a powerful story that has about 7 implications, and I might be able to tell it in 3 minutes.
Go.
Okay. So those of you from Australia appreciate this. 15 or so years ago, we used to do seminars in Australia. I flew in with my family. We were doing something rather profound. We sold out 4 or 5 $5,000 seminars and a $25,000 seminar. Very, very unique for back then. We were staying at the Sheraton in Sydney. We'd flown in. My family went to bed. I couldn't sleep. Went up to the concierge suite. There was another man in the corner. I was drinking cognac, trying to get tired. I walked up to him, just he and I. I told him 2 things about myself, that I was from the States, and I was there on business. I started asking him a myriad of questions. I found out he was traveling from Germany. He represented a very strong, large pharmaceutical company. He was there at an international convention of World Health Ministers. There was security, everybody. I'm trying to accelerate this. I asked him, first of all, what he did. He went to work for a huge company, and he traveled the world, going to third world countries, selling population control systems. I found that very interesting. I first of all wanted to know what a population control system would be like, how many different variations there were.
Isn't it just a condom? Or?
It's all kinds of things. It's sterilization, everything. I said, how do you make a cold call about selling population control systems? How do you build your Rolodex? What is the selling cycle like? What is the attitude of the health minister? Is it a straightforward sale? Is it an under-the-table sale? Went through all kinds of things. Once you make the sale, how do you basically disseminate this to the population? How do they like it? What happens after? What's the media implications? How do they pay for it? What's it thought about? Then I switched. I want to know what it's like living in Germany. I wanted to know the lifestyle. I wanted to know the economic. I wanted to know the schools. I want to know what in the heck he was going to do when he grew up, because he had this incredible Rolodex. We go on and on, but it's just a succession of progressive questions. They're all connected. And the lesson I'm going to make is profoundly, so I'm drinking, Cavassier is about 90 minutes of this, and after about 5 of them, I was feeling tipsy, and I stood up, and I told him that I was going to go to my room, and I'm walking away. And the man stopped me. This man knew every health minister, profoundly intelligent man, wonderful answers to these very pithy but penetrating and very heartfelt questions. And he stopped me and he said something that forever changed my life. Because I only told him 2 things about myself. Number 1, I was from the States. Number 2, I was there in business. He said, I have to tell you, you are one of the most interesting men I have ever met. Now, let me give you the epilogue, because the epilogue is what's profound. So I'm leaning on the elevator, the framework, praying that when the doors open, there's really an elevator, not a shaft, because I can't stand up. Seriously. And poor Paris saw me. Yeah, I owe apology to Paris, because I met him and he was very gracious the night before, and I was drinking, and I bumped into him the next day and couldn't remember him because I didn't watch him here, and I apologize to you for that. But
he wasn't worth it. It's okay.
Yeah, I felt bad. But I realized some profound life issues. I thought, you want to be the most interesting person in the world? All you have to do is be the most interested. You want to be the most relevant person? All you have to do is make everybody relevant. You want to be the most trusted? All you have to do is, it's polar opposites. It's very profound. But the point is, you ask questions, and the concept of Socratic interview is you'll always hit pay dirt if you're not in a hurry, and you'll always hit pay dirt if you're really focused and listening, and if you're not trying immediately if in mind is not a mental cue waiting for you to get your question in and hit your purpose. If you're really connected, having, again, lack of being, I'm just going to be a little vulgar, intellectual intercourse with this person at the deepest level of connectivity.
It's awesome. I want everybody, seriously, write down, it is much more important to be interested than interesting. It is much more important. That is brilliant. That's brilliant.
It's just an observation.
Well, it's a pretty damn good one. So today, you said to me recently, today's marketers are so lucky. And I see a lot of lucky people in the room. What's the context? Like, why do you believe that? And is there something that, and we don't have to get into, I hate ninja techniques. I like samurai techniques, for the record. But how should marketers today be optimizing, given they're so lucky?
Well, I think the first thing they should do is realize that hard work. I mean, I'm old school, terribly old school, and I don't even turn my computer on. So technology is intimidating as crap to me, but I understand what it means. I come from a school where, and you know this, my clients, I've been very blessed. My clients were like the Deming organization back in the 80s and 90s, and I had to understand optimization and process improvement, highest and best use theory. Then it was the largest multivariable testing organization, and we looked at $500 million of testing. But this is an era where you had to spend $1 million. You had to do 1,000 different variable tests with all kinds of algorithmic processes, but nothing like paying $30 for a cloud-based app that can do it for you in real time. I think today's people have so much more. You have access to power, but you don't have understanding of what I'll call, I don't want to use the word connectivity, but appreciation for the depth of and grasping really the context of who your client is and appreciating them. And I think it was very easy for a lot of younger people in the beginning to make a lot of money with superficiality. I mean, in the beginning, you could run hyperbole and bullets and you could make money. I think you're lucky because now you have to work harder to appreciate who your market is and what they want and why they want it. And you have to really be connected to them in a way that's totally different than the word connected means in the social media. I don't know if that's a good answer.
It is, and I think you even said to me in the same context that marketers can be quite superficial and that your notion of this notion of complete thinking with shorter attention spans. And so, anything more you want to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're you see, this is fascinating. You're competing against, most people don't realize you're competing against a myriad of things. You're competing against clutter, you're competing against direct competition, you're competing against alternative competition, you're competing against, the worst thing you're competing against is yourself, because you're not really understanding all these dynamics that are going on. And I think it takes, there's an adage, there's two adages that I love, and one is to slow down to go faster. And the other is, I've become obsessed in the last couple of years with Aikido, and I don't understand martial arts at all. But everybody comes to me with all these problems and all these issues and all these reasons why it doesn't work and all these flaws. And I really I believe that every negative is a wonderful positive that you can use to your advantage by showing that you're human. Everybody wants everything and everybody to be perfect, and I think that that is a fallacy, because none of us are perfect. I'm just sort of rambling a little bit. Might not be conducive to the question you asked.
It's good. It's good. People have. I mean, I did behind your back talk to some of your prize students. Some are in the room, and it was all people who all said the same thing first. They said, "I know Jay's stuff better than Jay does." And
they probably do now.
I know.
I'm more.
They quote something and you can't even remember that you wrote it, right? I mean,
I had somebody, this is terribly embarrassing, I had somebody that bought a day of my time 3 days before I came here, and he said, you know, the last two consults we did, and it was very laudatory, and I didn't even remember them, but I've been doing this a long time, and and when you evolve, I mean, everyone, you grow or die. It's an adage of life, and you grow as a being, you grow as, you know, a contributor. You get to different points in your life where your motivations are different, your interests are different. But I started out, I'm very proud, we did direct response, translating it to everyone else. That was my big deal. And I relate, Gary and I've always admired Gary, but we've never really been, talk all the time. But I came from the Claude Hopkins School, and I'll tell you one thing that you ought to all do, and I'll amend it. You should read Scientific Advertising first, because that's the distillation of Claude Hopkins, his views. Then you should read My Life in Advertising to see the experiences he incurred to have those views. Then you should read Taken at the Flood, which is the story of Albert Lasker, who's the guy that worked for him, because it puts another context. Then you should read the Lasker story, which is a very interesting perspective that Albert Lasker gave at a re-emergence when he was reinventing his agency. And his agency was the number 2 agency in the world next to J. Walter Thompson, and it gives you a much better context.
Yeah, great. I guess what they all said was there's a difference in just knowing Jay's stuff and applying them in a bigger way. I think we've gotten to some of that. So the concept's not the power, but it's applying the concept. So is there a Jay Abraham concept that you've seen applied in an amazing way, or one where they screwed it up? I mean, you don't have to answer this. We can go on to another question if you don't like this one.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. You want
No,
to
one of the, and I've been very blessed because I've had direct or indirect influence, and I'm not saying this arrogantly. It's clinged on, millions of people since the work. And some of the things that I was very impressed with is, and he was influenced I never knew him personally, but he was influenced by my work, Planet Fitness. I think that's cooler than, because he counter-programmed. Concept of Planet Fitness is basically, it's for the people who want to feel like they're working out, but they don't want to feel that. You can't grunt there. If you grunt, you're thrown out. You can't try to sit there and flex and look good. It's for people who really aren't in good shape but want to feel good about committing themselves to work out. I think that's pretty cool. The guy that did the first Bowflex commercial was a student of mine, and he was told you can't do expensive equipment on TV. I thought that was pretty cool. Mo Anderson, who was the co-founder of Keller Williams, says she's pretty. I got a lot of people. It's like it's.
Yeah. So, there's a lot in more in the internet space. This whole, and I believe in some of it. The moving the free line, and you've always talked about the marginalization of free.
Yeah, I got
Can
a
you
very
talk about that?
I think, I'll tell you my beliefs. Very different. I believe that there has to be almost an explicit contract of exchange. When you say free this, free that, I think it's so marginalized, it doesn't matter. I would prefer, and what I try to do with people that I work on that are doing things online, is articulate and revere what has gone into making whatever tangible or intangible item you are gifting in a way it's respected. For example, I don't just say free 25 or page report. I would say, we've spent, I wouldn't say it exactly like because I'm not writing copy. We've spent 5 years and 50,000 hours studying this. We've come to conclusions that to our knowledge no one else has. We've spent 1.5 years refining it. We now put it into a form where you can grasp it and you can act on it, and it'll instantly impact the performance. It's the result of looking at billions of dollars of successful transactions. It would mean a lot to us to share this with you. We'd like to do it. We'd be doing it, and we would like to gift it to you without charge and buy it for you, but there is an expectation, and it's a very, very respectful one. If we do that, we'd like you to, first of all, be willing to spend the time to seriously read it and reflect on it and then take action. And we're hoping that it will help you appreciate what we do, so there will be an inclination, I'm giving you a copy, to want to do business with us later. So you set some kind of standard of what it is, why you're doing this, instead of saying free report. I just believe it's a waste to say free report, and I've tested. I'm not writing copy today. I'm not an early morning person, so I'm giving you very feeble rhetoric, but I would tie what it is, the value, I would animate it, I would connect it to why we're doing it. One of my favorite, and I love this, I'd love to know the copywriter. If it's in this room, I'd love to meet you and shake your hand. Whoever writes the copy for Fisher Investment, I love you. I think your copy is so brilliant.
That person in the room?
Is the person in the room? Because I think your copy is fantastic. Because it's always based on a quid pro quo.
Yes.
It's always based, we're going to share our intellectual property that we normally reserve for our high net worth clients, and we're investing it because we found it's really always worthwhile. Either you manage your own money, and when you see this, your assets will go up, and people will ask you, and you'll tell them about us. You will split it and see that we outperform, or you'll paper trade, and it always establishes a quid pro quo of a future action that we are hoping and expecting you to take for the investment. I just think most people demean. I think free is very demeaning, and people think it's the hottest thing in the world. I think it has to be animated, it has to be valued, and you have to connect it in almost an implicit or an explicit agreement of not obligatory but hopeful expectation. If upon actuating it produces a result. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that when he says the marginalization of free, that is a brilliant description of that, and I think that was awesome. So we call Planet J, and I use the word planet intentionally because J right now, Planet J today is a global endeavor. Every time I try to get a hold of you, you're either in Japan or China for the most part.
I do a lot of travel there.
You travel a lot. I know you're teaching critical thinking there. Can you talk about what's going on in the places that you've decided to kind of take your thinking globally?
Yeah, and again, I'm older than many of you. I'm 65, so I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and I've been very blessed because I've done it. Lots of industries around the world, 4 or 5 continents, and I was taken. It's called the BRICS nations, if you know it. Brazil, the old Russia, India, China. They are the emergent. Whether you like it or not, there's amazing entrepreneurship that is breeding there, and it's you think of China and you think of all the you think of a lot of negatives. You think of people who knock off copyright, etc. But there's a core. I've always attracted. I don't attract the top corporations. I always attract the passionate entrepreneurs who are seeking they're seeking missing links like how to be value creators. They're missing links like how to really connect with their market. They're missing links. How to be strategic. And there's this bastion of entrepreneurship that's breeding in, and I'll tell you one story. I'll tell you two stories that are very wonderful.
You had a couple. You said you had a candy company.
I got a candy company. I got a motorcycle company. Both of them are really interesting stories. But they're desperate for clarity and direction. But the big problem, opportunity, they will outwork us. They have more verve, passion. They have much more hunger and thirst. There's only one thing they're missing, and with that, they're going to be much more formidable. They are not good critical thinkers, and I'm not trying to be discriminatory. It's a clinical fact. I've done lots of work in Asia, done lots of work in Latin America, and the educational system it's changing, but it's rote training. It's memorization. So if you ask somebody, what's 4 divided by 12, the square root of 6, add 22, divide by 107, multiply by 1,015, they can say, if you say this is to that, and this is to that, and this is to that, so what does that mean? So I teach critical thinking. I wanted to be sort of the Deming Drucker of China, and I've been very fortunate. I'll tell you some just two gratifying stories, and then I'll tell you what I do in Japan, because it's more noble, really. I make money there, but it's more noble. In China, I think about 6 months ago, I go about 3 times a year, and we do a very intensive $25,000 a person makeover, all through translation there. And I'm saying it not to brag. It's zany as can be, and I'll send, if you want, a couple of the sessions, and you can put them up for your people.
Oh,
but
great.
they're very hard, and they're very neat, and we've been very lucky. But about 6 months ago, I'm in the green room. The green room is just a figure. It's not really green. And this guy comes in with this Cheshire cat smile, and he says, I want to introduce you to somebody. He said, this is the top shoemaker in China. I want to buy you a $4,000 pair of shoes. Now, I don't like shoes. I like clothes, but I don't like shoes. But sure, buy it for me. Why? He goes, we've come to 5 of your seminars. We were the number 3 candy company. We're now number 1, and we just sold to Hershey's for $500 million. That's pretty cool. I thought, why didn't you give me some of the money instead of the
where's
shoes?
your percentage?
But I said, okay.
Hey, bad negotiation, buddy.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah.
But I said, okay, well, what was the essence you learned from me? He said, this is so powerful. He said, and by the way, you have to understand, in China, unlike groceries and drugstores, there's something like 20,000 candy stores, and it's really where candy is sold. He said, and this goes to reason why. And reason why is one of the most universal, misunderstood, and underutilized wonder drugs in the marketing strategic world. He said, what we were doing and what all our I'm paraphrasing, contemporaries were doing, we were going to the candy companies and saying, buy our candy. But we really didn't have the because. Everyone was doing that. He said, when we learned preeminence, which is really fall in love with your clients and do what's in their best interest, we shifted our whole strategic position. We went to candy companies and we said, we want to grow your business for you. Because we know if we grow your business for you, even if you don't give us 1 percentage point more, we'll make more money. But if we make a big difference and we care more and we do more and we produce more for you and your family and your stakeholders, again, this is the implied reciprocal contract. You'll want to give us more of your purchase. And that's what happened. So the other story is very cool because I do a lot of intangible and I do a lot of relational capital stuff. So I was in a seminar 6 years ago, and a guy comes up to the mic and he says, Jay, and this is through translation, so it's very heartfelt, sort of, because the translator has to have empathy, and it's a very interesting process. What do you do if the banks won't lend you money to grow? We're little. And I said, well, what would you do with the money? It's a very interesting question. Most people ask the wrong questions. I've learned to ask the right questions. What would you do with the money if you had it? He goes, well, we're a motorcycle manufacturer. We would go to Asia, and we would set up manufacturing, then we would hire salespeople, then we'd get some facilities, and we'd get some dealers. And I said, and this is a very true story, and I've been blessed by it. Mentor is much brighter than I, so this isn't original. I said, any problem that you have to solve is always the solution to a bigger problem somebody else has. They just don't know they have the problem. So I said, why don't you go to Asia and find somebody who's not competitive, that has manufacturing in a related field, has second shift that's not being used, has distribution that's not being used, has a sales force and a retail force that's not being used, and see if you can make some kind of a JV with them. Now, that was a throwaway the 2 minutes. A year later, I come back, and the guy comes to the mic, and he's like a Cheshire cat. He said, I did what he said. I went to Malaysia. I found a lawnmower company that was huge. They had a second shift they weren't using. We made a deal. All I had to do was bring the tools and dies. Those of you who don't know, tools and dies are the forms that you use to make the products. I had to go there and teach. They already had distribution. They already had a sales force. They had a lawnmower deal. He said, we both made $10 million in our first year on almost a zero investment. So things like that just tickle the heck out of me.
Right. Well, you're changing people's lives.
Well, you give me my whole deal is how to think differently about the situation, how to look at it from a CAT scan perspective. But see, most people, you're at a disadvantage if you're a specialist in your industry and you are so arrogant and ignorant not to allow yourself to learn as much as you can about everything else. I'll tell one more story, and then you can ask me anything else.
You're on.
We used to do a lot of seminars, $250 million seminars, and now you burnt on it. But we did two things that people thought were crazy. The first 3 hours, I'd make everybody stand up and tell everybody else what they did, how they did it, where they did it, what drove their business. People thought I was crazy, but it would show all the different ways of thinking. And then halfway through the seminar, this is when bookstores still existed, we'd go out and buy 1,000, close out always nonfiction books or magazines, and I'd ask, for example, Steve, what's your hobby if you have one? What do you like? Fishing. Okay, so I'd give him a book on macrame. And what's your name?
Fred.
What's your hobby?
Marketing.
Okay, I'd give you a book on cake decorating or a magazine, and I'd make you go to your room and either read 2 chapters or 2 articles and come out. We would always sit people in V tables where they were around each other, so they had to have the correlation of talking to each other. And after every session, we'd go around the room. We would make everybody tell everyone else what they got out of that session, because if you have 12 people listening, well, if you have 300 people, you have 299 different interpretations based on your background, how your mind's wired. But we would make them come the next morning and report 2 things they got out of that article that they'd never realized that were valuable, that they could use, and that were fascinating. And it was great in breaking the rigidity of people's paradigm.
Fantastic.
Well, it worked.
Fantastic. So a quote I received from an attendee in this room about you, actually it was more than one. It was one attendee and one person who couldn't be here. They both said the same thing. Something to the effect of affiliate marketing would not exist without Jay Abraham. And what I wanted you to talk about for a minute is this notion of relationship capital is not affiliate partners. I'm throwing you a softball, but I really want you to talk about, you've drilled into my head for 20 years about relationship capital and the value of it, and we've talked a lot about it here. There's no one that talks about it better than you, so please.
Okay, so we've done, again, this is just clinical. It's just to put in context, probably a couple $2 billion worth of strategic alliances, joint ventures, partnership deals, but they were always deeper. It wasn't just, everyone's going to send out the same email to them, we're going to do a launch.
Right.
I'm not knocking the launches, everything, but our attitude was to, first of all, identify all the tangible and intangible assets that a company had they weren't using. It could be distribution. Well, why don't I tell, if I tell the story of investment rates, it's an old story, but it gives you context.
Go ahead.
So the first thing was we were in the gold business when gold was first legalized. We had a lot of other things, rare coins, gold stocks, collectibles, guns, all kinds of things. So the first thing we did was we went to all the newsletters and we made ourselves the recommended provider. And I negotiated deals where when you subscribed, you got a package from us as the recommended advisor. Part of our deal was 4 times a year, there would be a special edition of the newsletter that we would put out that was all about us, and it was balanced, and the editors and the publishers would always have control of it. We would have the right to put on events, whether they be nationally or quarterly, at in the name of the publication. They'd also have control of it. If it was for profit, they would have all the money. We would have, when they're mailing pieces, if they were at all related to hard assets, when their mailing pieces stopped working and they stopped mailing them, we would buy the rights to take them and either mail them for them, because we always got joint tenancy of the list for internal purposes, or we would modify them to lead generating, because they would stop using them when they didn't break even, and break even would differ from different newsletters. It might be recouping marketing, it might be just marketing. Recouping fulfillment might just be marketing costs. A lead generation was a negative cash flow, so we would take the piece and we would basically modify it to lead generating, or we might repurpose it. We would create all kinds of other elements for them. That was one thing we did. We would go out, and any time that a book that was hot in the hard money market was out of favor, we would buy all the closeouts and send out tens of thousands of them. When Rare Coins was really, really, really at its peak, I went out and I got all these prominent people from, talking about relational capital, who were writing for all the major publications, and we put together books that, booklets, but they were really more interviews of people that were, we would put 25 people who were devoutly ecstatic about coins, and we put 10 that weren't, because we wanted to have balance. In the gold market when it started, there were a lot of producers. It's how before it illegalized the Krugerrand, there was a company called Intergold. It was a form to promote the Krugerrand, and people didn't realize that an ounce of gold selling for, let's call it $500, if you bought it just as a commodity, it's whatever, 500 plus, whatever the percentage, 2%, 0.5%. If it's a Krugerrand, it would sell for a 2 or 3% premium. 2 or 3% times $500 times 500,000, or excuse me, 500 million ounces is a lot of money. So this marketing conduit had a lot of money to underwrite people to do co-op, but typically they would do a stupid institutional ad. I was able to go to them and get them to give us money to do totally different things. One time we got $1 million for them to let me interview 2 or 3 of the top economists at the time and send out these interviews to them. And we just always tried to use relational capital to its fullest. Now, fast forward, I look at everything somebody's got, because I don't just do information. I look at the brand, how many different ways we can use it, create products for them, repurpose their old products, their distribution, their client. I mean, we look at the sales force, we look at how to reuse. It's a much more expansive, we just look at it, many more dimensions than doing an affiliate program. Affiliate is, to me, the outer periphery. It's the veneer of the whole thing. I'm not trying to demean it.
No. You've been teaching me this stuff my whole career, and what you just said, I just had a couple of other epiphanies. So,
okay. I mean, we've done 3 days on relational capital when I was younger, so it's got a lot more depth and dimension to it.
What are you? I don't want to get corny, but what are you most proud of from your career, which is still going strong? You said something to me recently about being the mad scientist of data, which kind of freaked me out, because the guy doesn't even want to turn his computer on. He's as much of a non-techie as I am, and yet I know I am a mad scientist of data, because you have to be in direct response. But I think you had a bigger meaning on that than I did.
Yeah, I was profoundly impacted by a lot of people that I worked with and that befriended me. And I don't think most people realize all the impact points in a transaction that are leverageable, all the factors and forces that affect an outcome, and all the ways that you can isolate them and control them. So that's one that you asked me a duality of questions. I want to answer, because I want to leave a higher ideal with everybody whenever we have to stop. But I've been trained to look at all kinds of factors in the continuum that most people don't ever, and I'm not talking about just response or A-B splits. I mean, if you look at, well, I'll give you an example, and it's a very cool example. So one time I did an immersive sort of an analysis makeover intervention for a large chain of radio stations. They had 400 salespeople. And the first thing I do is look at every factor that nobody else looks at. What they know, they don't know, they know. For example, in radio advertising, you sell drive time, you sell mid time, you sell lousy time, you sell worthless time. Radio sells promotional packages. Radio sells sports. Radio sells something called NTR, which is non-traditional revenue that is not radio. It's things they do outside. Just all kinds of events and things. Then you look at who's better in your sales force at selling packages, who's better in your sales force at selling against other radio stations, who's better at selling against media that has better ratings. Then you look at who's better at opening accounts. Then you look at who's better at selling accounts that don't have advertising. Just give you an example, ad agencies. Then you look at who's better at selling car dealers, and you figure out how much better they are. Most people, and this is not going to help most of it, most people who have sales forces, they impute and they expect their salespeople to be omnipotent at everything, which is dumber than heck. If you're 10 times better at opening up a car dealer, why in the world would I want you to be the car dealer guy in your territory? I wouldn't want you to come in. If you could open up accounts 5 times better than everyone else, wouldn't you be better at opening accounts and then pass them on to you? And people are not very good critical thinkers. I think if I have one thing, if I'm proud of, I think I've taught people critical thinking, integrative thinking, strategic thinking, and contributional thinking, really making a difference in what you do and making your business and your life, amount to something you can. I think it's, the question in life is, when it's over, did you take oxygen out of the world or did you put oxygen back in? And if you can leverage people who leverage people, and I mean, value is a very interesting concept. I don't want to go there because we could talk about it for hours, but I'm sorry.
No, that's great. So I've got these 2 questions. I'm going to call them.
Ask me the second one first.
All right, I will. Delicate question 1 and delicate question 2. Rich Sheffrin, I think I see you over there, right there. Probably one of Jay's prize students. Sorry to call you out on that, although I bet you're proud of it. And we kind of talked on the phone about what would be like the question to be a little delicate.
Okay.
All right, so you ready?
Sure.
And you want me to do number 2 before number 1?
Yes.
So number 2 was, I call it the price we pay, and I think Dan touched on this, the price we pay for being in direct response. And what I mean by that is where pushing the envelope pushes the edges, and not just envelopes, it could be anything online, and the edges, but selling is paramount. And how do you make, on the integrity scale, I mean, you've seen it all. You've seen the best, you've seen the worst. So the question in there, do you think we've paid a price for the way that we do direct response as an industry? And do you police that? I mean, you don't have to answer this. If you
Well, I'll
don't.
tell you what, I think that the concept of ethos, integrity is it's fluid, and it's subjective, but my observation is that a lot of people have sold out to make money. I had a very troubling experience a couple of years ago. I was at an event for a bunch of people who were they were in the spiritual market, and they were supposed to be changing and profoundly transforming lives. It was transformative something, and it was a fundraiser, and I was there just to sort of help people. And nobody was talking about how can I add more value. No one was talking about how can I make people's lives better. No one was talking about here's the issue that I think we have to work on to help people break through their barriers more, and this is all they wanted to talk about is, help me with my ascendancy program. How do I get to my $25,000 mastermind? And I was heartbroken. Because I think, one of the greatest lessons, and I've been blessed, somebody told me when I was younger, you can lose all your money, but if you have your integrity and your ethical plane, everyone will always back you. If you keep your money and you sell out your integrity, you'll never get your integrity back. I believe that a huge portion of people today have been seduced by a mistress called technology, and you don't realize it, but you've gotten intoxicated on avarice. And I think that's
Well put.
tragic.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did a good job with that, Rich, didn't he? We were wondering whether to ask him or not. The second one, delicate question 2. Here's
I could
number
go
1.
very deep on it, but
I
I'd
know
rather
you could.
not.
No, I want to get a few more in here.
Sure.
So delicate question number 1 if you had to do over again, what would you do differently? And you might want to, the teaching consulting thing, that was one of them, I think. But I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Whatever you want.
I'll give you reflections, regrets, and sort of some other things. It probably true. I mean, I've been very blessed. I've had impact on just a lot of very successful businesses, and I've been very blessed because for what I do, I've been very well compensated. But I can't manage it all. I really am a savant. I'm a marketing and strategic savant, and I can't do anything else. I wish I had taken equities in deals, and I wish that the public teaching I did was probably more just benevolent. And my wife about 20 times wanted me to develop programs for young entrepreneurs because there's such a tragedy. Half the kids don't go to school, half of them that go don't finish, half of them that finish can't get a job, and the future of the world is driving entrepreneurship. So I wish I had done more of that. And I never built an infrastructure because it was boring. This was never my first love. I accidentally got into public teaching. I always was behind the scenes, masterminding and engineering and strategizing businesses. And I was probably harsh on my family because I was obsessed. I'm insatiably obsessed with business. And when I was younger, I'd have meetings till 2 in the morning. And I've been married. I'm very lucky. I have a very lovely children that still love me. A couple of them are here. And
I need to hug one of them.
Yeah, one of them has got the same birthday as his. But I wish I had more balance. I wish I had a hobby. And I wish that I had taken more time. And when I was younger, anyone who's ever watched my stuff, I was not angry, but I was very intense. You get older and you get three things. You get humility, you get humanity, you get more gratitude, you're aware of your mortality, you have more joy for others, you can live vicariously, you're not as worried about your own ego. And the adage, and it is, I mean, youth is wasted on the young, and I think that well, I'll tell you one more story. It's very valuable and it's very personal. So I got started at 18. I got married at 18. Had 2 kids at 20. Never went to school. Had the needs of somebody 40. Nobody cared, but I was very lucky. And I won't give you the whole litany because it's colorful and painful. But I've had 3 midlife crises because I started early. One at 40, one at 50, one at 60. And one of them was the most profoundly enriching outcome of my life. I did something funny. The first one I would buy therapists for 45 minutes, and they'd say, come back next week, and it was very frustrating. So finally, the last one, I bought the person for a week at a time. And my deal was, if I couldn't be there, I'd send somebody who was effed up in my life who would never go, and the guy never knew who was coming. It was hilarious. And I do that with dentists, too. If I can't make a dental appointment, I always pay for it, but I'll send somebody with bad teeth and just say, take care of them. And they're always surprised. But I went through one person who changed my life. And he said one thing that made it worth the $500,000 that I spent. He said, most people are obsessed in the life with the end product. You want to be the fastest growing company. You want to be the most successful. You want the most money. You want to dominate the industry. You want the hottest wife. You want the biggest house. You want, whatever you want. If you're unlucky enough to get that for that reason alone, and you think that the heaven's going to open and the angels are going to trumpet and and your nirvana's going to prevail and all your problems are going to go away and your wife's going to want to take you in the bedroom if you're a male, or you're a female, your husband's going to want to spend all his time with your kids are going to all be, all this, it ain't going to happen. They said that life is about the process. This is as good as it gets, and it's actually very gratifying that I'm with a group of contemporaries and superiors. A lot of you guys humble me when I listen because I don't really look at life with that granular of a look anymore. But it's just as important if we're out talking to the housekeepers. When we go to China, we have a protocol. The same thing with Japan. We go 2 days early, and the first day we sit in the lobby and we smile at people for 6 hours till they smile back. The next day we ride the elevators and go on the floors, and we talk to the housekeepers, and it's very gratifying, and it connects you to humanity at a very deep level. Now, the old Jay would never have done that.
Yeah.
I would have wanted my, my presidential suite, my dom, and my indulgences. And it transforms your life when you got more gratitude. So,
That's fantastic.
I don't know.
That was a good idea to ask that question, Mr. Scheffrin. Quickly, I'll leave a couple of minutes for questions, but this is too good. So, and Jay you will be at the session this afternoon at 5:30, correct?
Yes.
So I'm not going to feel bad if we don't get to a lot of questions now. Talk about the 3 books you're currently working on. Give me like a few sentences on each. One is called The CEO Who Can See Around Corners. A second one is called What They Don't Tell You on Shark Tank. And just so you know, Damon John, everybody watch Shark Tank? Damon John, this is Damon John's mentor right here. What does he have, like a $9 billion business or something?
He's successful.
Yeah, he's a little successful. And he basically says that Jay Abraham is the guy that he goes to. Just FYI. Just saying. And then on the third book was calling Being Preeminent, which is, I think, you're doing that in Japan, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just
so quickly on those 3.
I'll start backwards because the third one is actually it's pretty cool. Japan has got a very sad. Anybody's ever been there? They have a low passion index, and there's a horrible statistic. Something like 30,000 young adults commit suicide every year because they feel hopeless. They feel like their lives are hopeless. They can't live up to their expectations. Some of them get intellectually and mentally diminished because they have a little bit of debt, and they actually walk into. There's one woods, and it's horrible. It's true. There's so many, dead corpses there of these young people. They don't even go there. And I'm working with a company that was started by the founder of Panasonic. It's called PHP Institute. And they've got great ideals, worth reading their ideals alone. And we're doing a book that's designed to really give passion, purpose, possibility to young people so that they have more hopefulness. So that's very cool. I did a book with a guy who's the retired chairman of our CEO of Adidas and Speedo Latin America, and he was the guy that licensed everything from Louis Vuitton and stuff to Latin America. And he's an older, wealthy man who is obsessed with family-owned businesses, 100 to 500 million, because the private ones, if you look at this is getting a little bit deep. If you look at the return on assets, they underperform the market so badly that they'd be better off liquidating and putting it into passive alternative investment class, and because every generation that comes in gets diluted. This family's family needs to get a job and they want a dividend and they don't reinvest. And in a lot of these family-owned businesses, they don't develop talent. They're not critical thinkers. They don't understand strategy. They don't know how to integrate foresight, hindsight, insight. They don't understand divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And this book is designed for that purpose. It's not real fun read, but it's written in a really interesting way that it talks about things like social intelligence in very different ways, intellectual intelligence, all kinds of things. But it's got something like 500 citations to prove the point. It's a fascinating read that was more the other person. And the last one is Damon and I collaborated for about a year and a half.
So that one is The CEO Who Can See Around Corners?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a really cool subtitle. I don't remember it, but it's a cool subtitle. And the last one is one that I never would have done, but I did it with Damon, and then it ended up morphing. But the concept behind it was, I believe all these people want money, and most people can't get money, and so I created a theme: how to get the money for your great idea or startup, and what to do if you can't. And the latter is really what happens with most people. And I've done $2 billion of deals where we had no capital. We had to either figure out how to trade, how to defer, how to make them a partner in the business, a partner in the transaction, a partner in the distribution channel. And so we created this incredible book, and we looked at all 3 or 4 years of the Shark Tank, and we took all the pitches that worked and all the ones that didn't, and we broke it apart. We created a chapter on we call it, I can't remember, it's a great title. It's not just bootstrapping, it's like magnificent bootstrapping, and we redefined it as the ultimate positive, not negative, and we got chapters on crowdfunding, and we've had them. I write a lot of books, and then I do nothing with them. So
That one could be a big sell. When is that coming out?
whenever I wanted to.
Okay.
It's just sitting there as a man. I mean, it's done. That's a
Well,
manuscript.
let's get that out there. That it's funny if you notice on Shark Tank, they always ask that question you said when they I want $15,000 for 15%.
Why?
Yeah, like what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah,
with the
nobody
money?
knows what
What are you going to do with the money?
And also how to present to an investor so that you're going to have a higher probability. How to show that you can mitigate the risk. What they're really thinking. I mean, the mental. I mean, but it's a very cool book. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in a lot of different
I
things.
want to. I don't know about you guys. I want to copy that book. You gonna give me one?
Sure, I send it to you, and I'll give you I'll email it to you in a minute.
Someone else? No, Jay will get someone else to email it to me.
That's true.
That's only because his computer isn't on.
Yeah, that's true.
So what question should I have asked that I didn't ask, Jay?
It's a good question. I guess what I think everybody should be doing differently in their businesses. And I think everybody in their businesses should be spending more time looking at other businesses. And other businesses means three things. I mean, it's funny, when we do interviews for prospective clients, I'll say, okay, tell me anything you know about your existing competitors. Tell me what their website says. Tell me what their selling position is. Tell me about their sales force. Tell me what's happened when you buy from them. Tell me what happens when you talk to the people that are buying from them, why they're buying. Tell me every alternative. For example, if you're selling a supplement, tell me about everything. Everyone's selling supplements. Tell me about everybody selling exercise equipment. Tell me everybody's selling videos. Tell me about every book that's being sold. Tell me about what the titles are going. Tell me about what you... And they look at me, and then I say, tell me about everybody else selling parallel universes. And I think most people don't even understand what really understanding your business world and your market looks like. I'm not answering the question well.
It's not bad. So it sounds like I asked most of the good questions then, so that's good.
Okay.
That's good. So we've got a couple of minutes. Mic runners. Again, we'll have a lot of Jay later, but Sebastian got his hand up first, so we'll get one right here.
Hi, Sebastian, the French marketer.
Hi, Sebastian.
I'm in a market in France where we have 5 companies about the same size. We have a leading edge, but I think we can get
What do they do? What's your business?
Oh, I teach small business owners how to do their marketing, mostly online.
Okay.
So online strategy.
Okay.
And I think we can get much bigger because the pie should be much bigger. But the other people in the market, I help them position their business, but they are not seeing bigger than where they are. And my question is it possible for us alone to build the pie bigger and go above, or do we need to also communicate with the others so that everybody grows at the same time?
Well, I can answer it two ways. Number one is, first of all, it's a question before I answer. How have you generated your business right now? What is your marketing and what are your sources?
A large part of the source is leads coming from joint venture relationships with these other.
So your generic competitors, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you have a sort of a symbiotic relationship with everybody that does the same thing.
Yes.
Sort of like the old newsletter business where everybody
everybody
it was an incestuous.
30% net outs on.
Yeah, I mean it's a interesting. I mean, if you can maintain collaboration, that's pretty cool. I always and I didn't say one other thing. One of my standard questions always, and we have a template. It's sort of hokey, but I'll give it to you, and you can put it up and give it to everybody who already has access to the market you want and already owns their trust, and has a direct relationship that you can directly access. That's usually better than trying, because sooner or later, probably, if you understand human nature, greed, resentment, if right now everybody's collaborating and cooperating, I would say that it's only out of economic necessity. It's probably not out of regard for one another, and sooner or later, I would say it's probably going to be a limited type of of a result. But if you can preemptively get control of everybody out there that has access to the entrepreneurial market, and that's a very vast and sweeping arc, and you can make them either your partners, your benefactors, and you know, whether you're value adding to them, whether they're a profit center for you, whether, I mean, there's a million ways to structure relationships. But I would say in France, in China, nobody understands strategic. I mean, not affiliate is a very limited, as I said, it's like the veneer. It's like saying, you know, there's this little quasi walnut on the wall, but what's behind the wall is really rich oak. And I'm not giving you a clear answer, but I would basically, the answer is you probably could, but I wouldn't do that. I would spend all my time, you know, just establishing and controlling and owning relationships with every entity, organization, institution, service provider, for and not-for-profit entity that had access to the entrepreneurial market you wanted and had their trust. You do that, you'll own the market. And you can also use it. Once you do that, by the way, most people are very vertical thinkers. Once you set that up, now you've got a distribution channel. You can put enormous amounts of other things through, and now all of a sudden it becomes an asset that has value besides just your service.
Jay, I can't hear what's coming out of this mic. There we go. Anyway, mostly I want to thank you because you've been so generous in sharing information. And even though you sort of knock free, you've actually given away an awful lot. And maybe for the group here, for those of you who aren't on Jay's mailing list, would you tell people how they can get on your email list?
I don't pay attention. I think for years we didn't. I got frustrated with the business op world, and I just gave everything away, and we didn't even take an email list. I think you can register for resources, but you ought to probably go. We have about 50 things we give away. We don't sell it. We sell one little thing, which is a hard drive. But I think, you know,
Can people get the Abraham Mindshift Challenge online?
It's Abraham Mindshift Challenge
Yeah,
online. 5 hours on preeminences online. Both books are online.
There's a ton.
There's about 5 hours of Q&A and interventions online. There's all kinds of stuff online. It's just go there. It's abraham.com, but I haven't looked at the website for years. It's very old style, but if you just register for research, 12 or 15 of the radio shows online.
It only works with a dial-up connection.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think you can get it. I don't pay attention
As I recall,
to it.
I mean, at least I have, you know, quite a bit of video material from.
Oh, I've got a J. Abraham shelf in my office.
But there is and not for, because we're not selling enough stuff that it matters one way or the other. But I got mad at everyone who was teasing a couple years ago. And we just put outrageous. We put, you know, it's got how to get from where you are to where you want to be, which is a really wonderful course with 336 examples on it. It's got interviews of Stephen Covey, Stephen M.R. Covey. It's got a lot of really cool stuff on it. That, you know, my interviews from Tony, my interviews with Tony, a lot of cool stuff on it.